Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for having me once again.
Glad to have you back. I want to start with the former president's comments from Sean Hannity's program last night on Fox News, getting a lot of headlines this morning. Trump says presidents can declassify documents, quote, even by thinking about it. Your reaction, sir?
Well, it's incredible that he feels that those documents that are critical to national security, and I may add, critical to security across the planet, as we see the threats coming from Putin of the potential nuclear option. It's just mind-boggling that he feels that this is something that you can just take home and put away in your closet and declassify them quickly without any concerns whatsoever. I think that this is concerning. It sort of like sheds light on maybe his state of mind, where he is right now, given everything that seems to be collapsing around him.
In terms of shedding light on what's happening, I wonder if you talked to your colleagues, your Democratic colleagues on the Select January 6th committee. Do you know more than we do at this point about what they are going to be exploring in the weeks to come?
Well, I tell you, after going through over 140,000 documents and 1,000 witnesses, I think that they have a body of evidence there and enough information available to make a sound and an intelligent and an educated decision. I think that this has been a very sort of like deliberate process. It's been bipartisan. Is gone through, dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's. I don't think it's been off the cuff or reacting to a crisis situation. And I think that they have all the evidence before them, and they will make a sound and intelligent and deliberate decision that the American people could once again feel some level of confidence in their government.
And we'll learn about that body of work before the midterm elections. Is that your understanding?
I hope so. I hope that the American people deserve to have that information before they cast their votes. It's important to make a judgment as to what occurred on January 6th. I feel very strongly that it was a violent, racist attempt to stop the count of the transfer of power. And so this is something critical and hits right at the center of democracy. And this insurrection could not just be swept under the rug. And so the American people deserve to have all the evidence before them and an educated opinion from the committee before they cast their votes in the midterm.
Let me give out the phone numbers for viewers to join us. Congressman Espaillat with us for about the next 20 minutes until the bottom of the hour at 8:30. Democrats, it's 202-748-8000 to call in. Republicans, 202-748-8001. Independents, 202-748-8002. I'm not sure if you're listening to our first segment of the Washington Journal this morning, sir, but we were talking about the Fed's interest rate hike efforts to battle inflation. I want to get your thoughts on that latest rate hike. Is there more you think the Fed should be doing? Is there more that Congress can be doing?
Well, we see that unemployment it's pretty low, and that the price of gas is going down, and so those are obviously good signs. But unfortunately, inflation continues to be high, and this was, I believe, a prudent action by the Fed. But let's see what happens. I think that eventually those two indicators show us that eventually inflation will begin to come down, and prices will, of course, come down with it of goods that are important to the American household. So this is a prudent and I thought a good action that must be taken at this point. But I don't foresee that it has to be done again. I'm optimistic that inflation will begin to come down, given the indicators, the other economic indicators that show that we're on our way back.
And then one other topic to get your thoughts on. I know you yourself are an immigrant to this country and briefly were undocumented for a time when you were younger. I wonder your thoughts on this effort by Republican governors in Texas and Florida to transfer undocumented immigrants to so-called sanctuary cities and areas of this country.
Well, first is that they may have, at least Governor DeSantis may have used COVID-19 monies to do that. And a very expensive trip, I may ask. These folks are asylum seekers. They're fleeing the Maduro regime. And it's mind-boggling how people like DeSantis and Abbott, who has spent a good time criticizing that authoritarian regime, now turn their backs on the victims of that regime, which are seeking asylum. And so I think they were misled, tricked, bamboozled. I think that there may be some illegalities with regards to the actions taken by these governors to spend the people's money to send someone to a state that perhaps they didn't want to go to, or at the very least have no families or friends there, and to be misled in that fashion and to spend monies that should have been spent somewhere else. I think there's some level of illegality there, and I'm happy there's a lawsuit pending right now.
First question via Twitter. Sally Sue writes in just a minute or so ago, Congressman Espaillat, what will it take for Congress to get immigration reform passed?
We should do it. This should be an opportunity to do what I think are the low-hanging fruits, which are DACA, right? Dreamers, the TPS recipients should be included. We've recently submitted, put forward a registration bill that is a very technical and a bill that would accomplish a lot just with a change of date for registration. So that has been around since 1929, by the way, this model of immigration reform. And yet we see that the other side of the aisle is refusing to do that. What they're doing is to weaponize it politically in this midterm election, when in fact anyone that goes to a restaurant in any of the major cities across the country will see that service is slow. And when you go to small businesses across Main Street, you see that their primary concern is a lack of workers. And so we have them right here. Let's bring them in. Let's strengthen our economy. Let's make sure that our economy is robust again, and it will be good for all Americans.
Springfield, Missouri is up on the phones. This is Doug, a Republican. Good morning. You're on with Congressman Espaillat.
Hey, I just wondering how come no congressman, senator, anybody ever mentions this is the secret documents thing has already been settled in Supreme Court thanks to Bill Clinton, who hid some secret documents in his sock drawer. So the Supreme Court ruled that all presidents presumed to have declassified just by having possession of it. How about that, Mr. Representative?
Well, what I tell you about the documents is what the recent federal court ruled, and that's that the Department of Justice should have access to those classified documents that were under former President Trump's pillow. And so we must have access to that. Those are documents that could present, in the hands of the wrong people, could present a clear and pressing danger to America. And so this is not something to laugh at. This is not a joke. This is very serious business. A former president does not have the right to declassify documents willy-nilly, or nor do they have the right to take them home with them. And so this is important for the security of our nation and the security of the world.
To Vera, Clifton, Virginia, line for Democrats. Good morning. You're on with Congressman Espaillat.
Good morning, Congressman. Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to make a comment regarding immigration. In my opinion, it looks like both political parties, but especially the Republicans, try to weaponize immigration and abortion, which now is no longer an issue for them because it got, got passed. But my comment is that why aren't they utilizing the laws that are in place right now to ensure that immigration is improving, rather than every 2 years or 4 years, using that as a weapon. The last time that I heard the emergency about immigration was when there were all these caravans coming to destroy America and this, that, and the other. And I think that's just not great for this country when we want to use immigration as a political tool just to get elected.
Well, I agree with you that it should not be a political tool. We have put forward several proposals. One which I put forward in the Build Back Better initiative was a simple work authorization for 5 years with the ability for the workers, the immigrants, to reapply for an additional 5 years. Our economy needs that. And now we have the registration model that we recently brought forward that will allow folks to come in using a system that was first applied back in 1929. And so these are very sensible, very practical proposals that we're putting forward. And even if there is no political will to adopt them, we could still bring in dreamers and TPS recipients. With regards to the recent arrivals at the border, a good number of them are from Venezuela, and they're seeking political asylum, and they're fleeing the Maduro regime. So we see how, again, Governor DeSantis, Governor Abbott, who have been very critical of the Maduro regime, are turning their backs on these asylum seekers. They should be heard, they should make their case, and we should consider providing them asylum.
To the Lone Star State, this is Dolly in Bedford, Texas. Independent, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just wanted to make one statement that rather umbrellas over this whole subject of the rising prices that we call inflation. And what it seems to me, because I'm 86 and I have had my finger on a lot of subjects about our government and about our local economy for a long, long time. I worked full-time until I was 81 at one company for 22 years. And so the business cycle that is out there, that is the driver of all of our prices, in my opinion, and here again, I understand I could be lacking information that would help me understand in a different way. But the way I see it now is there has been a single mind from the mercenary marketing cartels. That's what I call them. And I don't know what anybody else would call it, but the companies, the big companies, like for instance, I don't want to name names, but my TV provider has just done everything they could to increase my television coverage cost. And I want, as a retired person, I want to watch a varied amount of networks so that I can know what's going on.
So, Dolly,
you think I'm going on here?
You think companies are working together to raise prices all across the economy? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, what I want to, it's the better way to distribute that information out is to think of markets. You know, there's the real estate market, there's the food market, there is the automobile market.
And we've talked about a lot of them today, Dolly. Let me let the congressman jump in to respond.
Well, what I can tell you is that so far the job market and consumer spending have stayed pretty much constant. And this past month, in August, we saw 315,000 jobs were added nationally, and the unemployment rate is at 3.7. So I do share some concern about price gouging that have perhaps is one of the issues that the caller is trying to highlight, and how some companies may take advantage, particularly with the price of oil. But as we see, the price of gas is coming down now. It's coming down slowly, but it's coming down. And I think it will have a good impact on the price of goods at the stores. So that's the state of our economy. Inflation is still high. It lags a little bit. Inflation generally lags behind these indicators. So I'm optimistic that it will begin to come down. But I am concerned about some level of I won't call it collusion, but a price gouging that may be occurring across America.
This is Grant here in Washington, D.C., an independent. Good morning.
Morning. Thanks a lot for taking my call. I just wanted to ask the rep about reports that the documents at Mar-a-Lago contained information about a foreign country's nuclear weapons program. Just delinking this from Trump for the moment, I just want to ask whether their release couldn't actually be a good thing. It seems like such records, especially pertaining to Israel's nuclear weapons program, won't be released under any other scenario. We spent a lot of money at my organization suing the National Archives to release presidential letters to the Israelis and their lobby promising never to discuss Israel's nuclear weapons, which were reported in the New York Times. Congress has basically been violating the Symington and Glenn amendments to the Foreign Assistance Act since the mid-1970s, by providing U.S. foreign aid to Israel. So, given that Congress is violating its social contract with Americans by sending their tax dollars to an unlawful recipient, and won't explain why they aren't demanding waivers on that aid, couldn't it possibly be a good thing if somebody released documents on Israel's nuclear weapons program?
Well, I mean, this is a very broad question. But just for the record, I am a supporter of the state of Israel. I think they're an ally in the region, and we should continue to support them. I am not sure. I haven't been privy, nor do I have access to any of those documents, so I can't speculate that it includes information about Israel's military arsenal. But I do feel that Israel deserves to have our support. I'm a strong supporter of the state of Israel and will continue to support it. And I think that eventually the American people should have access to some of the information, whether it is classified and it is a matter of national security is another question altogether. And I leave that up to the security experts to determine whether or not this type of information should be proliferated across households in America.
Less than 5 minutes left with Congressman Adriano Espaillat of New York. This is Steve out of San Jose, California, Republican. Good morning.
I certainly agree with your guest's comment in regards to the Mar-a-Lago documents, and that they pose a clear and present danger. But from my perspective, some of them also pose a clear and present danger to the Democratic Party, in that I hope that Trump took documents that were regarding the way that the FBI acted and has been weaponized through the Democratic Party. Those would be most enlightening, and that was my comment.
Well, look, these documents obviously pertain to his administration, the Trump administration, and of course, the FBI and the Department of Justice were led by his appointees. So if there was any weaponization of those departments, it may have been by his administration. So I'll just leave it at that.
Dinwiddie, Virginia. This is Grover, a Democrat. Good morning.
Yes. People don't understand. Money don't evaporate. It changes hands. And number two of it is, if the 1% would pay their fair share of taxes, we wouldn't have these problems.
Congressman Espaillat.
If they looked at the stealing that Trump did up there in New York, with all them buildings and not paying taxes, they'll understand that.
Grover,
Well,
I think somebody's trying to get in touch with you, Grover. Go ahead, Congressman.
Well, we have seen recently how the New York State Attorney General has filed suit that alleges that over 200 times his enterprise undervalue or overvalue his properties to have access to capital and insurance policies, and may have engaged in criminal activity. So we'll see. We'll wait and see for the results of that legal action recently announced by the New York State Attorney General Letitia James.
Fair Play, Missouri. Jeff, Republican. Good morning.
Good morning, y'all. I just want to ask the representative a question about, he has so much fear of January 6th, but I wonder if he has just as much fear if we go back to 2016 when Clapper, Brennan, Obama, Biden, Rice all investigated a sitting president. The papers he took is going to definitely define the original coup. The original coup is Obama and Biden investigating a sitting president after they already knew everything that the FBI had presented was a complete fabricated lie by the Clintons.
Congressman, I'll give you the final minute or so.
Well, there was obviously there was a process that Congress engaged in, both to impeach President Trump on two occasions, and the House Representative acted accordingly. The last process was after, of course, January 6th, which was a clear insurrection to take down government, to take down democracy, to stop the vote count of a fair and open election that led to the election of Joe Biden. And so we acted appropriately, and we acted within the confines of the Constitution. So I'm very proud of the actions that we took.
Congressman, I know running short on time, did want to ask before you left, we had chatted a little bit about that effort by governors in Texas and Florida to send undocumented immigrants to so-called sanctuary states and cities. This month, I know that you joined other members of Congress to try to provide funding to help and feed migrants who are sent around this country. Can you just explain that? Did want to ask before you left.
Of course, there's still funding available through FEMA. New York State is asking for reimbursements. We're asking for an additional $50 million for the rest of the year. And we feel that program that's within FEMA, because this is an emergency, should have $500 million for the beginning of next year. So that's our attempt to capture the funding that would allow municipalities, in this case, of course, in my state, New York, to be able to house and attend to the asylum seekers that are coming to our city.
And is that something that happens? I know we're getting tight on timing when it comes to keeping the government running, but is that something that you think will happen as part of this process to fund the government?
The $50 million or the rest of the year should be through our CR. And of course, the $500 million should be through an appropriations process.
Congressman Adriano Espaillat, Democrat from New York. Always appreciate your time this morning. I know you always do stop by and visit us when you can. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.